leveraging technology to automate company reporting and portfolio analytics. We're glad everybody's here today. I think we have an informative webinar, and let's get right to it. First, a little bit of administration for those on the line. All your participant lines are muted to mask background noise. You do have the opportunity to submit questions, and we encourage you to do so in the chat feature in GoToWebinar. We will reserve time towards the end of the webinar to answer those questions, and we also may answer them during the course of our presentation. We are recording this webinar, and it will be available upon request if you'd like to share it with those in your organization who may not be able to make it for this session today. And as you exit this webinar, we're going to ask you a couple short questions. We appreciate your participation. We just want to learn a little bit more about you and your needs at your private equity firm. I want to talk a little bit about our sponsors for today's webinar. This is co-sponsored by Frazier & Deeter and FD Fund Administration. Frazier & Deeter is the nation's 56th largest CPA firm headquartered in Atlanta. We have a fully dedicated private equity services practice offering a full range of services for private equity firms around the country. FD Fund Administration is our affiliate firm based in Philadelphia. It's a full-service fund administration business that handles very large and mid-market private equity funds. We have multi-billions under administration, and we're glad to have FD Fund Administration as a sponsor of this webinar. A little bit about your presenters. I'm Bob Woosley, Robert Woosley. I'm the National Practice Leader for Private Equity Services for Frazier & Deeter. I'm joined by Michael O'Shaughnessy, who's the CEO of iLumen, our technology partner with Frazier & Deeter. iLumen is a technology provider to leading CPA firms around the country, financial institutions, franchise organizations, and private equity firms. So let's get right to it. As you saw in our webinar invite, and perhaps the reason you're interested in learning more about this, if you're in the private equity industry, there's no surprise to you that there's growing pressures for transparency and more information from general partners. Limited partners are certainly requiring more and value relationships with private equity firms that can provide that information. This is under the backdrop of more regulatory pressure as the industry seeks to start standardizing information. Initiatives are underway, as we all know about that. And certainly, general partners, as they manage their changing portfolios and growing portfolios, the need to get more insights and information on the financial trajectory of these portfolio companies, the valuation drivers, is ever more important. And as I mentioned before, limited partners are certainly requiring more information regarding the underlying portfolio so they can evaluate the risk analysis and be able to benchmark the performance of private equity firms that they deal with. So that's a little bit about the industry climate. So let's just talk about the business problem that we're going to address today, where we see portfolio companies in the marketplace in various industries and different geographies. But one thing that we all know is that portfolio companies, they all perhaps run different accounting systems and reporting systems. You may have on the low end companies running QuickBooks, to the high end running SAP and JD Edwards, and the middle market companies running Mass 90 and Peachtree products and Microsoft Dynamics, but they're not uniform. As a result, the information that comes out of those systems is not standardized, which typically requires portfolio companies to take information out of their systems and prepare reports, often in Excel, to submit to their owners, the private equity firms. So you have a lot, the underlying thing, they're preparing monthly information in different systems, have to export it out and to comply or even produce their own reports that are submitted to the private equity firm. What we see there is a manual process of managing these different templates and reports coming out of the various portfolio companies. We see a lot of work trying to consolidate those Excel templates. Some of those Excel templates are not standardized. The bottom line is you're seeing a time-intensive process. You have to manage errors that can occur anytime you're manipulating Excel spreadsheets. And when we see private equity firms try to turn to automation and technology to help solve the problem, what we've seen is very expensive solutions that don't quite hit the mark. So that's the business problem we're going to talk about today. So I want to take a step back and talk about, as you saw in our invite, what the commonality that we see with CPAs and private equity with respect to the problem of receiving and analyzing company information. So as you look at the CPA profession, a CPA firm like Fraser and Dieter, for example, we deal with a much larger group of client companies that we do audits for and tax returns and interact with them in various ways. We have a long-standing tradition, as do many CPA firms. We want to receive and analyze interim and annual information and use technology to do that. We like to see the trends. It informs our audit planning and processes, our tax planning. So for years, we've leveraged leading technology platforms, one of which we're going to talk about today, to automate the receipt analysis, our Excel templates and other reports with respect to our CPA firm. As we look at the private equity market, we actually see a smaller number of companies that are being managed or asked to submit information as compared to a large CPA firm like Fraser and Dieter. But we do see the private equity firm trying to do the same thing we've been doing. They'd like to receive and analyze this information. They'd like to trend it. They like to populate financial analysis, typically in Excel reports. And we see this being, on the private equity side, really a manual and a process. And as I mentioned before, we started looking in our interaction with private equity firms around the country, they being, with software providers being very expensive compared to what we've been using at our CPA practice for years. So that's a little bit of the backdrop. So what's the ideal system? And we're going to actually show you a little bit of the system that we have brought to the private equity market, where portfolio companies, regardless of their accounting system, can submit information easily into a secure portal that's private branded for the private equity firm. So what was a manual process now becomes an automated process. So the inventory of existing reports that often the Excel reports where the private equity firm has been managing that manually are now automated. It has the ability that even if your portfolio company has different Excel models or reports that they're producing, that you now have the ability to standardize reports at the back end, to look across your portfolio and run custom queries and produce new reports and analysis that would be valued by your general partners and your limits and other constituencies. And once you get your information into a technology platform, you have the ability to program analytic-based alerts so that literally reports and emails from the system can be delivered to you if a company trips a trigger, say it's a revenue growth trigger or a valuation metric that you've programmed in that you would like to be alerted and brought this company's to your attention. And with the technology platform, you have, just like many platforms that you deal with in other areas, the ability to have workflows and reminders so the company knows it's time to upload information and they don't have to necessarily, you don't have to have a staff at your firm or calling them up and trying to run them down. So that's what we're going to show you today. What's essential here is that the experience for the portfolio company needs to be easy. So we found in practicing a CPA firm, we certainly couldn't ask our client companies to go change their accounting systems or fill out Excel templates that we wanted because we wanted it. It has to be ubiquitous, working with all systems, the result of which will the company gets to automate those reports that they were having to manually extract and fill in to comply with their private equity firm. We find that the portfolio company finds these reports and dashboards very useful in their own business, and they appreciate the reminders and alerts that the system can produce. So with that, I'm going to turn to my associate, Michael O'Shaughnessy, who again is going to run through a demonstration that involves a fictitious private equity firm to show you the capabilities of the system. We will be watching as you guys ask questions, and I will also perhaps interrupt Michael during the flow of his demonstration to prompt him with some of those questions. And then we'll circle back to me toward the end of the webinar to wrap up. So with that, I'm going to introduce Michael O'Shaughnessy.
Thank you, Bob. I'm going to switch over here and log into, this is the Tidal Wave Capital Management powered by Frazier Dieter, as Bob mentioned. And what you're looking at right now is if you were logged in as a private equity firm and you had multiple companies that you were responsible for keeping track of. So these are what we call my favorites. They're your favorite locations. And we're going to go in and look at some of the data that's available for one individual company. So I'm going to go to an interim data company so that we have both some good trends to look at. The system is designed, as Bob mentioned, to receive data from any accounting system, and then what we do is based on the industry that the company is associated with, whether they're a service company, a construction company, a manufacturing company, we create a chart of accounts that drive the individual metrics that you're going to see for that company. So here you can see we have an executive summary. Looking here at gross profit, you can see that, well, let me go to EBITDA has improved by $7,000, so it got a green icon. So as Bob mentioned, some of your portfolio companies, it's very easy for them to see what's going on and what the detail information is. I can also look at other organizations. I can look at other data points, other types of analytics. So if you wanted to look at things like receivable days, inventory turns, days in inventory, those type of things would be available to you. This is showing you a monthly trend. I could also look at a year-to-date so that I can see the year-to-date through February for this company, the same period last year, so they've seen some good growth. How they look this month, the month of February compared to the same month. And then the system is automatically going to calculate a trailing 12 months and compare it to the last fiscal year, so you can see a variance there. So just some simple dashboards to be able to show you what the information is and what you can do with it. The next piece we would look at, as Bob mentioned, a lot of the Excel-based reports. We use Excel as our report writer also, and we use it to create reports on our own, but we also use them to take the models and the proprietary analysis that you've already created, and we make it so that our system simply feeds the models that you've already built. So I'm going to run one right here. This is going to be a monthly analysis, so I'm just going to click Generate. It's very straightforward. And this report, if you don't want to log into the system and you want to have it sent to you, the system can set it up so that the report is emailed to you right after the company uploads their financial information or at the end of the month, whatever your normal business process might be. So it just ran this monthly review, and I'm going to open that up, and you can see it's downloading an Excel report. And here you can see we've taken some different bits and pieces out of different models that we've wired up for people, just to give you an idea of what's involved with them, in that they can be fully built out Excel models with graphs and charts and different ways to analyze the data. So we have some we have some straightforward analysis that are reports that we build, but we really spend most of our time building out models for the portfolio company or for your whole portfolio.
And Michael, this is Bob. Just got a question in on that. You made the point that you take a look at the existing reports firm already has, and talk a little bit about how that gets wired into the platform, the reports that they already have when we go implement them.
Right. Great question. It's a simple process that the team does, and basically we add some more tabs and we have a landing spot for the data. So if you're supposed to pull in this month, year to date, trailing 12 months, whatever data you're supposed to pull in, we just make a place for that to land, and then we link it to however you have your report already wired up. So it's a very manual process. We need to just understand what data, what periods of data you're normally wiring in it. Are we just adding one more month, or are we adding a year-to-date comparison to the current trended comparison?
So the main point there for the audience is really that the platform can deliver your existing reporting structure that you're already using at your private equity firm. These reports that you already have become menu items in the platform and are automated.
Right, exactly. And those reports can be for an individual company or for generic for the whole, across the whole portfolio. Next thing we want to talk about is how does the data get in? And our system is a push where the portfolio company pushes the data to us, which is we found to be the best because they have to do their reconciliations at the end of the month. Sometimes they have some accounting that they have to clean up, and you want to get clean data when you do it. So we send reminders. Those can be done, set up any fashion that you want. So we're going to push it directly to the person that's going to be responsible for uploading the data. So it's just an email. They're going to click it, and we are we're internet, obviously a web-based system. So the system is secured. All the data that transpired over is encrypted, and I'm logging in as an actual portfolio company. We don't need to look at the announcements. So this is a different portfolio company that I looked before, and this company only has annual data. And so we're going to see annual trends, which I didn't cover earlier. So here you can see we have data through 2014. This company was doing pretty well. They went from 2.4 million to 1.9, so the trends are good. Now I want to go in and I want to upload the next period of data for them. So the full process, everything, the steps you're going to see me do right now are the same ones that the portfolio company would do each month. They could do it, or each quarter, however often you require them to submit data. So here you can see I'm submitting years, but we could also submit quarters, we could submit months. But here I'm just going to go to year 2015. And in the background, the portfolio company has gone into their accounting systems, all the ones that Bob's mentioned, Peachtree to Mass 90 to SAP, and they're going to run a report out of their system, and they're going to push it to Excel or a Comms Unlimited. Doesn't matter what the format is. That's really what the key technology is. And they're just going to browse for the file that they've downloaded. And this is my upload demo. So there's the file right there. I'm going to click upload. So in the background, what's happening is we've said, okay, upload demo, this company right here should have uploaded a file that looks like this. And then we have a data parser that pulls the data out. So the format of the file doesn't matter. And that's the financial information. The other key information that is can be extremely important is to be able to gather some operational data, number of employees, so you can look at revenue and cost per employee. Maybe you collect hours so that you can look at a utilization for a service company. You also can look at if it's a manufacturing, number of trucks, number of lines that they have running, get into high-level analysis of their receivables. We can also help, the system can also help you track maybe some key dates, health inspections, depending on what type of company it is. They can give you what their anticipated growth. It really doesn't matter what the questions are. It's just you're dealing with the person that has the data. They're the ones that's uploading this. and they can just simply key the data in. If I've got 15 employees, I just key it in and hit save and exit. So the full process for the uploading company is a matter of a couple of minutes a month. Very straightforward.
So Michael, this is Bob again, and you're really showing where when we go into a private equity firm, you've shown how quickly the financial data gets in. I know you're going to show the refresh screen there.
Mm-hmm.
That next step is really a configurable step where we go in and find out what metrics the private equity firm is asking their portfolio company to submit. That becomes just the second step of the upload process. That process is not complete until those steps are done, and then the system kicks off from there. Is that correct?
That is correct. Okay. Mm-hmm. So here you can see now we've got this year 2015. This company's revenue is down significantly. Their EBITDA percentage has fallen significantly. So you could have received an alert right after they uploaded with this information in it, and then you would have been able to rack whether this was an annual period or a monthly period. So that's the view for the client. If you've got someone that has multiple portfolio companies, we can give them access to more than one with one location. Access to more than one location. So now I'm changing gears. We've looked at it earlier as a single company. Now I want to go back to the portfolio view. So here is the list of my favorites and the companies that I want to look at. I can then look at data on a trended basis. I can look at the information, that shows what's the EBITDA trend for each one of my companies by month. So here you can see that I've got data trended for 2015. This could be on a rolling 12 months, and the data there gives you a total, so you can see how they're doing and how their locations are doing. I can also look at it on, look at the portfolio across multiple locations. So I'm going to run a query. And I'm going to go back to February. Whoops, I'm going to go back to February because that's where we have some of the interim data. So here you can see I've got the total revenue for each one of my locations. I've got the gross profit, the earnings for each one for an individual month. And if in addition to just the metrics and any other columns of data that I wanted to be able to custom and build my own portfolio, if I wanted to take this and have this sent to me, this might be one of your portfolios that are all linked. They're all your responsibility. They're all in one industry. Whatever is a logical way to group them, and you want to see a review of all of those companies together, so you can have your quarterly investment meeting, your monthly investment meeting, that type of thing. So I've asked the system to go and run this tidal wave portfolio review and run this report. And so it's going to go grab all the data that I've told it. Again, another Excel model that we use an example. And so here is one of those portfolio review reports. So that I ran in earlier, so that we wouldn't. It's going to take it about 2 minutes to upload, so we won't have to do it. So here you can see we've got trends of data, we've got comments of data, we've got different key metrics that are being pulled in here, operational data, and then each one of these tabs is a different manufacturing company. You can see some of these that we don't, from an interim standpoint, don't have data.
So Michael, just to ask a question, so what you're showing us here is when we go to a private equity firm, they have portfolio level reports that already exist. That they'd like us to wire into the platform as well. And this is an example of one. And previously, you just showed the ability that once this information is in the technology in this relational database, your ability to set up custom queries that the private equity firm would always like to see. And as that company, all their companies have reported in, they could run that query and run a report that they've already thought about that comes out of the system. And then, of course, you have the ability to extend their current inventory of analytical reports by giving them new reports. Now that they have their information in a technology platform, they might say, hey, we'd love to have a report that does X, Y, and Z, and that report, this could be a new Excel model. We can collaborate with the private equity firm and get that new Excel model as a new report in the menu.
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So this can be from one to many reports. This could be, you know, any way you wanted to do. And the goal is to combine multiple companies into one report. And that's all we're trying to do, is make it so that the portfolio is easier to analyze and to deal with. And the in the system, any type of ad hoc analysis that you wanted to do, if you had a wanted to keep track of other things, other queries, as Bob mentioned, if I wanted to keep track of who's the lead investment firm for these different companies, what was our investment in preferred stock or common stock, if we have some sort of stock price, anything like that that you want to pre-make. And with everything in our system, if you wanted to do some sort of off-site analysis, everything is exportable to, you know, anytime you see one of the system's grids, you can, it puts the data there. And then you can easily put the data into do whatever ad hoc analysis you wanted to do. All right?
Michael, I have a question that just came in. In terms of setting the company up, you know, describe that process. You know, say the private equity firm has 15 portfolio companies. I'm going to cover a little bit about how Fraser Dieter sets that up, but what's involved in setting a company up on the platform?
Mm-hmm. Normally or what the process is that the portfolio companies, we have all kinds of help links that show them how to do it, but normally we just get on the phone and walk them through their first upload, and then to find out what accounting system they're using to keep their books on, whether it's, again, all the ones that we just mentioned. We look at a report that they are already having, and maybe something that they're already submitting to the private equity firm, and we can just use that same report, and instead of them emailing it in, they're able to just attach it and upload. And then once the data arrives, there is a one-time process to map their chart of accounts into the system so that we know what's a revenue, what's an expense, and the level of detail that you want. But once that's done, and that can take anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour to do, so it's a one-time setup to be able to do that. And then after that, it's done. You know, just decide how much historical data you want to get. Do you want to go back a year? Do you want to go back 5 years? How much you want them to submit, and you're done.
And typically, just for the attendees, when we're supporting a private equity firm, that's a service that Fraser Dieter offers. We interact with your company to get it set up. So we just typically have taken an inventory of the reports, get them wired in the system, communicate with the portfolio companies, and now they're submitting data. And so for the private equity firm itself, it's hardly anything other than being trained on using the software.
Right, and we never have it. There's never an issue with difficulty in how do I upload. That's not the ever a problem. So it's a very straightforward process.
And to emphasize the point, where the portfolio company was manually extracting information from their accounting system, filling out Excel templates, and preparing those Excel templates, and then sending them upstream to the private company, that's been replaced with a simple upload from the accounting system, answering a couple of questions in a web form, and in a matter of seconds, that Excel report that they used to do manually is now available to them, mm-hmm. and available to the private equity firm on the back end.
Correct. Mm-hmm. So I think that's those were the main things that I wanted to cover today. So what we talked about was the ability for portfolio companies to be able to upload data, for you to be able to see what's going on with your overall portfolio, and to be able to leverage your existing business process using whatever reports and whatever process you use to manage your portfolio, that we're able to mirror that and automate so that your analysts are spending time analyzing the data and not spending time just rekeying data from one Excel model into another.
Okay, Michael, great. And we do have a couple questions. I do want to get back to the PowerPoint slide, if you can get you there. And here we go. Great. And let's get to where we. All right, that's
messed that up.
There we go. That's on support services. That's fine. Okay, great. So we just did a technology demonstration. Thank you, Michael, for that. And Michael and his team, who have dealt with just large numbers of companies submitting into banks and their franchise organizations, of course, to our CPA firm and other CPA firms. It's just a great partner, and their support team just do a wonderful job, so we thank you for that. Talking about support, as I mentioned, typically what we provide is we'll set up the company for you, get all the existing Excel templates wired in. Then our CPA firm will visit, just usually through a conference call, maybe once every 6 months. So if we see something that we'd like to bring to the private equity firm's attention, it might be a revenue recognition flag that we've seen, or perhaps it's a company that looks right for a tax credit and we don't see that credit being taken. So we like to add value in a very efficient way when we see things that we might want to bring to your attention. And then the third bullet point, which we just covered, is that it's great to see a private equity firm get all their inventory of Excel templates and existing reports automated, but then we typically see that they go, now we have a system that can do that. I sure would like to have an analysis that does another thing. And that's really a collaborative process. We help with that, but it can be as simple as the private equity firm analyst creating an Excel template that he or she would like to see as part of their reporting package, and just have us wire it into the platform like we would any other report. So very, very flexible system, and we certainly do see that a lot. So I want to go to key takeaways, and then we'll add, we see we have a couple of questions, and I think we're on time. The key takeaways we want to make sure that all the attendees understand is that this technology has been in the market for years, and if you think about it, outside the private equity industry, where do private companies report to? Where do they report? Well, they report their information to their CPAs because we're their trusted advisor, their auditors. It's part of our relationship with them to regularly receive and analyze their information. They report to their franchisor if they're a franchisee because they're required to. Or they may report to their financial institution who has a debt covenant that requires them to submit information to calculate debt covenants in this particular case for loan compliance. This technology has enabled those receiving institutions for years, and we're just delighted, as I say in the second bullet point, to bring this to the private equity industry, where the problems are the same. We see, as I mentioned before, grappling with Excel templates, an inefficient process, and it's great to know that there's technology that's been out there for over a decade that can automate that. Another key takeaway is it's very important to know that the portfolio company themselves, the controller or CFO, this is not going to be seen as a hindrance or a pain. It's just extremely easy. It's attaching a file and hitting upload, answering some questions, they're done. What the other key takeaway is that we definitely have seen that time and resources are freed up at the private equity firm. And as Michael's demonstrated here, there's new information and analysis that are at your fingertips now that was just too hard to get at before, that can be available to the private equity firm. So that's another key takeaway. The last bullet point I want to talk about is expense. In my opening dialogue, I talked about the fact that as we were serving private equity firms in our fund administration business and our transaction services business, we definitely saw some providers out there working and delivering an application that does some of what we're talking about, but not as elegantly, that was very, very costly. At Fraser & Dieter, we decided to negotiate a deal with iLumen, who's a leading provider of this service in the CPA space, to deliver just a very, very low-cost solution to private equity as part of our thrust to add value to the private equity industry in general, So we're not a software company. We're not trying to optimize our revenue on this. We're trying to deliver a solution and basically help private equity firms solve a problem. So with that, we're getting close to the end of our webinar. I do want to address some of the questions that have come in. Okay, I think we've got 2 or 3. We'll go ahead and cover it. Well, here's a question. Bob, you mentioned how much it was inexpensive. How much does it cost? I will give you a little bit of pricing guidance here. I can tell you anecdotally, at least, that ends up being about 10 or 20% of the other providers we see in the marketplace. So I'm glad you asked that question. We certainly can look at your portfolio, look at your situation, quote you specifically. The second question I see is, here's a question about that we mentioned that reports and analysis could be delivered by email. Yes, that's true. Imagine the company uploading information and you asked to be alerted as a portfolio manager or relationship manager to be alerted when the company uploads, and not only that, but to deliver the report that you want to see for that company to your email, all done securely. That's a key feature of the system, so you don't necessarily have to log into it all the time. It's not dissimilar to a customer relationship management system. For example, we use Salesforce at Fraser Dieter, and we're getting alerts from it all the time. So we avoid having to log into it all the time. So the system's really pretty good about prompting you on things happening in the portfolio. Let's see. The last question, I think we've already answered that. Is there any limit to the type of accounting package? What if there's a industry-specific package? True that we sometimes see companies not going for the normal packages that may have some crazy industry-specific package. The reason the system works so well is it only takes us a few minutes to build that custom data parser that would take their unique trial balance structure into the platform. So that enables us to roll out the platform ubiquitously and not have any portfolio company have to change from JD Edwards to SAP or to more likely Peachtree to QuickBooks or vice versa. They can keep running and doing what they're doing. We just never see a system that we can't go consume the data once we see it the first time. Michael, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just add that from an experience standpoint, sometimes you've got a company that has either multiple divisions or multiple companies. Think of a franchise operation that's got 10 or 12 locations. Many of the accounting systems already have ways to keep those locations separate internally, and instead of the portfolio company having to upload a different file for each one of those locations, the data parser, we can train it to upload a consolidated view, and then upload each individual company to their own individual one, so that you can keep track of your new locations that are open, and you can keep everything separate and make it mirror the way that they're keeping their data in their books. So we can really leverage a lot of the grouping and the divisional reporting that takes place inside of an individual accounting package.
Great, thank you, Michael. So I think that's most of the questions. As we conclude this webinar, we hope that we've enlightened you on enabling technology that CPAs have used and now brought to the private equity market. We hope you've seen the ability to maybe automate some of your back-end processes in receiving and analyzing your individual company data and portfolio data. We'd be delighted to talk to any of you that might be interested in learning a little bit more. So with that, Michael and I would like to thank you for your participation, and we hope you have a great day, and thank you. The webinar is now concluded.
Thank you very much.